How we doing, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. Today, we're going to go over some of the happenings in the NFL yesterday in a very eventful and also somewhat surprising Week 3 in the NFL. We're also going to speak on the misfortune of Aaron Judge not having that final at-bat last evening. The Bronx got rained on. Aaron Judge will have to wait another day, maybe in Toronto, where he had a very eventful home run earlier this year. I have a guest in the house. Very excited to have you here, sir, Mr. Sergio Rodriguez. And for the audience, please introduce yourself. I understand that you have a pretty cool podcast yourself.
Not bad. The Sergio Rodriguez show, which I've been doing now for 3 years. It was a show that essentially the same format that I had when I was at ESPN. I was at ESPN for 10 years. I was at ESPN in Orlando. And then in DC, we used to do the Sports Journey show there. And then in DC, we went there and the Sports Journey Network, it became the Sports Journey Network. That's how big it got. It's an ESPN affiliate. And the show is obviously a podcast, but I'm part of the Sports Journey Network still.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, and I appreciate you having me on. I like I told you when I spoke to you, I listened to your show and I enjoyed the content of you and your friends. It was very good.
Sergio, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. I'm not sure if it's the connection. Just going to make sure we're still a little bit of feedback.
I'm good here.
Getting a little bit of feedback. I might dump these for a second just to see if it's a little better. We're going to start up in the American League with the New York Yankees last evening. I got to imagine at some point it does work the nerves when you're chasing a prolific record. You're talking about Aaron Judge, who has already set records in terms of being a right-handed hitter for American League history. But now we're entering a territory where pitchers are really doing their due diligence to pitch around him. And it does seem like potentially, even though he is fighting for a triple crown and kind of sprays the ball to all fields, it also appears that just maybe he's pressing a little too hard. And I guess the question at hand is, when will he get 62? And will he get 62? Because it's not in the bag.
Well, you got to get 61 first, right? I think that these guys, when they go through these moments of trying to accomplish a milestone, they're always going to go through a period of trepidation in those at-bats. It's natural. In fact, A-Rod had Clemens and Bonds last night on his telecast during the game. And Bonds was talking about how the nerves set in for that next home run. And he spoke about the one at bat where Judge flied. I guess it was his last at bat where he flied to center. How he probably would have taken that first pitch. Look, I think that after 4 games, it's hard to say that he's necessarily pressing. I'm sure it's in the back of his mind, but I haven't seen bad at bats. I haven't seen him chasing a ridiculous amount of pitches in order to try to hit the home run. And in fact, he almost got it a couple of nights ago deep to center field. On any other regular night, it probably goes out.
Yeah, the weather definitely kept that ball in the yard. And I do think playing in New York, things get blown out of proportion. The man has already hit 60. And I do believe that the way the media presses it sometimes is like, oh my God, he hasn't hit a home run in 4 games. Where his numbers in a year that offensive numbers around the board in Major League Baseball are down. I think as time moves along, what he has accomplished this year is going to really age well, because what he did is very rare. And it's not so much about the home runs. I think it's about the versatility of being forced to play center field with the litany of injuries the team has had. And I also believe just being able to spray to all fields, which he takes very seriously as being a great hitter. Because, in today's baseball, with the analytically driven aspect of it, it does seem like strikeouts are not frowned upon upon as much as in the old days.
And look, I think the one thing that people forget all the time, because he's made them forget it this season, and obviously in his rookie year, is how hard it is for a right-hander to hit home runs in Yankee Stadium. I mean, the fact is, Judge, A-Rod, and DiMaggio might be the only three right-handed hitters to ever hit over 40. Because I think Soriano only got to 39.
That's correct. He almost was a 40-40, man. He missed it by one home run.
So it's not that easy to just go in there at Yankee Stadium and hit a ball. Everybody thinks the Yankee Stadium is a home run haven, but it is technically for lefty hitters, but not for right-handed hitters.
I couldn't agree more. And you see a lot of guys with the short porch and right that are right-handed hitters sometimes master slicing the ball down the line.
Correct. Well, I think that whole launch approach, that launch angle approach, actually has helped right-handed hitters hit a lot of more home runs the other way, because you almost have to Ferris wheel the ball out, particularly on the inside part of the plate. So if they can barrel it up on the inside part of the plate, they can hit a ball 340 the other way in the Yankee Stadium. That'll go.
Yeah. Derek Jeter, who was not exactly a home run hitter, but did have a knack for the dramatic, definitely was able to master slicing that ball. And not only necessarily for a home run, but just finding the right place where that ball is going to drop. And I mean, you have other ballparks with interesting dimensions. I mean, you look at our rivals in Fenway with Pesky's pole. That is one of the most, it's just a weird dimension. I don't think there's any other way to put it. And then, of course, you got the Monster, which over time with them changing the stadium, I remember back in the 90s, you couldn't stand above the Monster. That's like been a newer thing over the past 10, 15 years or so. Because I recall Paul O'Neill hitting a couple when I was at a weekend series with my late father. But it's exciting, I would say, for baseball fans to see something like this happening. And, of course, what's going on with Albert Pujols to hit two on the road against, I would say, in most people's opinion, the best team in baseball, and a team that he was a rental on very briefly.
Man, they let him hit those home runs, man.
You think they were kind of serving him?
Listen, let me tell you something about that. And then I'll add something else on Judge. When you look at Albert Pujols the last 10 years, he has been an above average player. Yeah. From the day that he left St. Louis and went to Anaheim, I think maybe he had one or two good years, but nowhere near who he was.
Couldn't justify that contract.
And he was still young. He was still 31, 32. It wasn't like he was, he went there at 38.
Yeah, and the Cardinals looked smart for allowing him to test the waters.
Correct. They were smart, the same way the Yankees should let Judge go. The interesting thing is that the last 3 or 4 years, he's basically been below average as a player. And all of a sudden, in the last 2 months, he goes back to being the Pujols of, 2004. Come on. They're BP fastballing him to death, and they're cement mixing pitches over the middle of the plate. I mean, there's no way that anybody can have the type of 2 months that he's had in the game that's being played today, and at his age. You don't just do that. So that's number one. Number two, the thing with Judge and the home run chase, I think is good for baseball, because baseball has a major disconnect with the youth. See, guys like me and you, Richie, we're gonna watch baseball regardless. It's what we do. We find a million issues with the analytics and the strikeouts and all that stuff, but we're masochists, right? We're gonna come back for more. It is what it is. Yeah. But I think it's created a buzz for a younger generation who is seeing this essentially for the first time And I think it's good for the game because fact is, I don't know if there's going to be many baseball people left in another 25, 30 years when we're gone from this planet.
That's a great point. And when I was a member of the Jordan Patrick Show, we spoke on this and saying how it was very important for Major League Baseball to kind of dump some of their unwritten rules. I remember when Fernando Tatis was under a ton of scrutiny for hitting a grand slam in a game that was pretty much decided. But my thing is like this. If you have the audacity to throw the ball down the middle, then you reap what you sow. Now, at the time, Tatis was being pushed as the face of Major League Baseball with the PED suspension. He's going to have to do some image makeover. The guy is very young. I think he can still rewrite the story. And, kind of flipping it back to Judge, it does appear that Major League Baseball very much so is trying to find their next face. And also to appeal to inner city youth, I think is incredibly important because when you look at the percentage even of African-American players in, say, the 80s, 70s, 90s, and now you're looking at a diminishing rate of African-American players, like you take a guy like Curtis Granderson, great ambassador for the game. Obviously, Latinos make up a massive part of Major League Baseball right now. We have some great players all over. You have Venezuelans, you have Dominicans, you have Puerto Ricans that are carrying the torch of their predecessors.
But Richie, that's by not having another outlet. See, that's a topic that's always very, very, very dicey to get into because I don't think people truly understand why we don't have the African-American player playing baseball. Okay. The baseball player plays it because it's part of their culture, A. And B, the players that are making it to the big leagues and are in the minors are not my kids that are born here in the United States. These are Venezuelan born and Dominican born. So to them, coming here and making $500, okay, a week to play baseball or $350 a week and $2,000 is a huge upgrade over the life that they left in a third world country.
Absolutely.
Okay. The black athlete does not play baseball in this country, and it's a couple of issues. Two of them socially and one of them athletically. In my opinion, making it to the big leagues is the hardest thing. Too many tiers. If you're an athlete, if you're a black athlete in this country, and you can play basketball or you can play football, you can make it at 22 and be a millionaire, at 21 and be a millionaire. Baseball doesn't play that way. That's number one. Number two, the coaching of the game and the learning of it has become very expensive because, in order to play the game now at the highest of levels and compete against the people that you need to compete to get better, you have to pay $70 a week for a hitting lesson. There are pitches. And for people from the inner city, which most black families tend to be from, they don't have the capabilities to invest in that growth of that player when you can just take a basketball and go shoot by yourself, right?
And perfect your craft at the youngest of ages. I mean, and you could probably make this same argument with a sport like golf or tennis.
1,000%. And that we're seeing it in baseball. And then finally, and this is something that it hurts me to say as a minority, right? But I think the baseball has always been a father-son sport. It's been a handed down sport. And the fact that we have a lot of single mom homes in the black community causes a situation where the blacks just don't fall in love with the game early enough. And I've spoken to friends of mine. I played with two guys in high school who were black that got drafted. And we speak about that. And I remember their love for baseball as opposed to the kids that I had when I was teaching and I was in school system. It's not the same anymore. And so I think there's a lot of factors. And I don't think that, the stuff that they use, the RBI stuff, that's not going to change anything because, again, it's not attacking the main issue.
I do tend to agree with you with your point about it truly being a father and son type game. And, I have nieces who play at a competitive level. and so much more that goes into it to keeping that alive in terms of cultivating a young person into becoming a young adult that still plays this game at a high level. And you make an excellent point about how the money is not in the minors, and that true love for the game starts early. And a lot of times it's what drives people to stick with it, because there are a lot of things that emotionally could mess you up when you think you're ready and then you get pushed back. Sometimes it's just a misfortune of maybe being drafted by a team that has a wealth of guys that do what you do on the main roster. You look at Miguel Andujar.
Richie, all you have to do is look at it like this. There are guys who have been, I'm going to say, average to above average players in the NBA. Guy like a Rudy Gay. I'm going to tell you, a guy like a Rudy Gay. Would you say that Rudy Gay has been as impactful in the NBA as Aaron Judge has been in baseball?
Absolutely not.
I bet you Rudy Gay has made over $150 million in his career.
I wouldn't doubt it. I would not doubt it.
And he started making it at a very young age. Aaron Judge at 30 now, although he's won a couple of arbitration cases, the fact is, at 30, is that he's now trying to get that payday.
And the age isn't on his side.
Yeah. And again, going through the minors is a process because you need that familial support. You know, I had a couple of cousins of mine. I had a buddy of mine, Jair Jurgens, when he was pitching with Detroit and Tony Peralta, when they were there, guys who played for me in Little League. Tony played for me. I would go down when they were playing with Detroit down in Lakeland, in Tigertown. I would go down there and have to take those guys out to dinner, buy them groceries like that. If you don't have that, it's hard to make it in the bigs, to the bigs.
There is a legit support system that is necessary.
Exactly. And I think that the black athlete doesn't have that initial support system, and it's hard for them to go. Not everybody, obviously, but we're talking about in a widespread. And so if you look at it, they all gravitate to the one thing that they can do is rely on their athleticism. It provides them with the opportunity for an education, which is positive.
Absolutely.
Right? Baseball doesn't guarantee you an education.
No, sir.
So there's a lot of things that, that just become an issue. But to me, they're all social issues. So all the garbage that Major League Baseball is doing, with reviving baseball in the inner city, blah, 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 blah. To me, that's all garbage. It's all propaganda because nobody cares that there's no, Dominicans, or there's no lack of white players in the NBA. Nobody cares about that stuff. Why? Because it doesn't sell. It doesn't sell.
And truth be told, when you look at non-African American players in the NBA, more times than not, they are from overseas. And truth be told, they outperform the American white basketball player
100%.
9 out of 10 times. And that is a legitimate reason why you don't see many white players, American-born white players, in the NBA anymore.
But they can go play baseball, though, and they can play golf. And
absolutely
play tennis, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, and you take a guy like a Christian McCaffrey, just throwing it out there, like from the Carolina Panthers. That's like an aberration. You don't see that.
I remember a time when the only white defensive back of the starters was Jason Sehorn.
Yeah, my first Giants jersey, my very first Giants jersey. My Aunt Debbie bought me that. And he was a bad dude before he unfortunately tore his knee in that ridiculous decision. Ridiculous decision that put him on special teams in a preseason game against the Jets. We're going to move it along to the NFL. Miami Dolphins, this was interesting. I watched this game very closely. I had a ton of dudes playing in fantasy for me. Weird game. I feel that Buffalo shot themselves in the foot, but more so than that, I think the heat was truly a factor in this game. Guys were really cramping up. It was very tough for the team from upstate New York to deal with these conditions. But what I found intriguing, and I even said this to my buddy Brett, who hung out with me yesterday and watched the games, was I thought it was kind of odd how it seemed like, at least from what you heard upstairs, is that Tua was done for the day. Now, I read an article last evening that the NFL is going to investigate this situation to see if the proper steps for the concussion protocol were applied.
I can give you the solution to that. They were followed.
They'll follow?
No, that's what they're going to tell you. They were followed.
Oh, well, yeah, I think we both know that.
The NFL is not going to, they will do what they need to do so they don't get sued.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, okay. Okay. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here.
These guys are cattle.
And I'm sure you watch, maybe from time to time, you've seen Dark Side of Football, kind of like a spinoff of Dark Side of the Ring, which, chronicled, some of the issues, 70s, 80s. You take a guy like Lyle Alzado. I played with his son in Pee Wee football. The media beat him up so bad with some of his issues with the steroids. I can speak as a young man who he came to our games, a super humble guy. He was a big teddy bear. So when I see the way that the media ripped him apart, it definitely took it a little personal for me, because I understand that through life people have demons and people who try to overcome things. But I thought he was a great dude. Just my opinion. I'm sure a lot of offensive tackles in the NFL wouldn't share my sentiments, because that dude was intense. But a big heart on him. May he rest in peace. But he came to a lot of our games when I was a kid. Just a really cool guy, and was all about just giving you a couple of words of wisdom and not necessarily just applying to football. But I guess where I'm going is it's funny how narratives flip and narratives change, because, what I was getting at, you look at the Brett Favre thing with the Vicodin, and he went to rehab and he came back. And obviously we know about what he's kind of stepped in the mud for lately with the situation with welfare monies that were basically stolen, and you look at the dog fighting. Well, that's going to be a thing. And I love dogs. Don't get me wrong. I'm not minimizing dogs. But what I'm saying is, like, you got the Mike Vick thing, that he was like the devil. Brett Favre, essentially being in on taking money from impoverished families, that's going to somehow get swept under the rug. And this goes into the whole narrative thing. And it's pretty disturbing when you get to the crust of it.
Well, so, look, Tua was out of that game.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I didn't expect to see him back, especially just on the way that he got up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is the NFL. He's got, I think part of it too is he's had some injury issues in the past, and I think that he needs to show that he can hang in there for a while and play. So I think part of it is him.
I do agree with that. I did think that on a solo thought yesterday, seeing him come back, but I said, man, this is not a good idea.
Correct. I don't think it's a good idea. First of all, let's be clear about one thing. They took advantage of a really beat up team yesterday. I think Buffalo on a neutral field is 10 points better than Miami.
They should have won yesterday.
I believe that.
Self-inflicted wounds with all their issues on the roster.
They still probably should have won that game.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
The short roster, I mean, you name it. It was what it was. But look, I think at the end of the day, Buffalo will be standing. But if you're Miami, you're 3-0. Your quarterback has at least given you some form of hope that maybe he's a little better than what you thought you had signed up for as a top 10 pick. He's not going to fool me. Okay. To me, he is, what he is, a guy who can be serviceable, but I'm not going to, I think that the Dolphins and the Eagles right now, who are beating their chest about Jalen Hurts and Tua as quarterbacks,
my good friend Mike Zappi, similar to your train of thought, particularly with Jalen Hurts, he feels that even tracking it back to last year, they were in trouble, particularly after Michael Strahan Day. It looked like the Eagles were just going to fall on their face. They made a true commitment to having that trio of running backs and really trying to switch up how they approached games, getting the ball out of Hurts' hands if it wasn't starting from the running game. Now you track it back to what they're doing right now after last year's short playoff stay. Now, do I think he's improved? To a level, yes, I do. And I think I could say the same for Tua, but I factor in the bigger picture. I think Nick Sirianni's doing a good job with protecting the weaknesses. And in Miami, you can't discount that guys like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill can also mask some of the weaknesses of Tua. But I think in time they will be exposed. This is a team that came back in a miracle fashion against the Ravens, and quite frankly, they should have lost yesterday.
When they start breaking film down and looking at the tendencies and taking things away, you'll see Tua. Essentially, he didn't have a great game yesterday. He made one throw. He made one throw yesterday. Okay, that was a good one. One throw.
You can make an argument that Mac Jones had a better game yesterday. And
if you look at Hurts, give it about another 2 or 3 weeks. First of all, their schedule's terrible, but just similar to the Giants, the Eagles should win games just on the schedule alone, regardless of who they put on the field. But if you look at his numbers when he's in the pocket, which is what these games ultimately become, right? Early in the year, the game is played sideline to sideline. Eventually, it closes in and it goes hash to hash. That's when these guys, that's when you see the difference between a Herbert and a Mahomes. And
absolutely.
A guy like a Tua or a Hurts. So, again, if they want to celebrate and call their quarterback chant MVP, God bless them.
I can't.
They're both 3-0. I mean, I guess, but
there's nothing to piggyback off of because I'm a realist. I mean, God willing, by 11 p.m. tonight, when I go out with my boys, the Giants are going to be 3-0. But I'm not a delusional fan that thinks that Daniel Jones is the second coming of Fran Tarkenton or anything. I believe that Brian Daboll is a very intelligent coach, and I think that they are getting the most out of a very imperfect roster. We all know that Saquon Barkley is a freakish athlete, and when healthy, he is one of the best to do it. But having said that, this is a team that is still trying to get their feet wet in terms of building that offensive line, which I do think for the first time in a long time, they made a responsible addressing of it, where in years past it was pretty pathetic how they just seemed to neglect that position for so long.
Let me show you how only Giant fans would think, and maybe not you, Richie, but the Giant fans that I'm around here in New York are the only people that think the Giants are a good team. The Giants are not even a 3-point favorite versus the Cowboys tonight.
Nor should they be.
Well, wait a minute. Vegas is basically telling you if this game was on a neutral field with a backup quarterback, with no Gallup at receiver, and a healthy Giants team for the most part, they would be a 4.5, 5-point dog. So when I look at that, Vegas, I've always been a big believer that Vegas tells me what's going on.
Yeah, if you choose to see it the way that they want you to see it, as opposed to getting in your thoughts too much.
Yeah, so I put out plays. I've always put out plays for gamblers, and if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I'm about over the last 3 years, I'm about 30 something games over 500. And people ask me all the time, "Yo, why are you picking against my Packers?" Or I said, honestly, I don't know. I don't really care. I'm not picking against the Packers. I'm going at verse off the line. The line tells me that's what should happen. Like yesterday, one of the plays was the Dolphins. It was my play of the year. I don't think the Dolphins are a better team than Buffalo, no matter what.
Absolutely not.
Vegas was telling me they were going to win that game. And so those are things that sometimes you have to be able to separate that stuff. And if you understand gambling, you understand that if you're at home, you're automatically a 3-point favorite at home. That's 3 points. Being at home is worth 3 points. If you're at home and you're not favored by at least 4 points, then they're telling you that if you're only a 3-point favorite, they're basically telling you that on a neutral field, you're not as good as the other team.
Yeah, that's essentially what they're saying. And like from putting the fan hat on for a moment, I want to see Ojulari on the field tonight. I want to see Kayvon. I at least want to see one of them. We're not going to have Leonard Williams, but like any other game with two imperfect rosters, I think it's going to come down to who can spring the running game in a better fashion and who takes care of the football. I don't think there's a lot scientific about it. I said on a previous show that I do like the Giants to pull off the win, mainly because I think it could become a battle of field goals, and I have a little more trust in our kicker than I do for Dallas's kicker. But
1,000%. That game could go either way. I'm going to tell you, being a Cowboy fan, I'm going to tell you that I don't have any expectations of winning that game anyway, because again, I don't think you could ever do that with the Cowboys right now. Even with Prescott, I'm not a big Prescott guy, but
I tend to like Romo more too, if I'm going to be honest.
Tony Romo was one of the most underrated players in the last 50 years of football, and especially if you take on the fact that he wasn't even drafted. But you made a good point about the turnovers. I trust Cooper Rush to not turn the ball over more, ironically, than I do Daniel Jones, who's a turnover machine and can give the Cowboys defense, who's been playing phenomenal. I thought they were going to kill Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones is the key tonight. He can't do what the guy averages 2 turnovers a game for his career. You can't go in there and give the Cowboys in a game that, like you said, could be a field goal game. You can't give these guys short fields because you're going to be cavalier with the ball in the pocket or just fling it up in the air. That, I think, could be the difference in the game tonight. Who wins it? To me, honestly, I'm watching 2 midgets in a circus.
Yes, I'm a homer on some of this, and I'm not ashamed. I'm going to say 23-20 Giants in a defensive struggle. I do like Graham Gano. I think he is so valuable and one of the truly great kickers in the league. But to your point, Daniel Jones has to be better. And I said this on my previous show. I want to see the Giants come out with a lot of no huddle, scripted no huddle, because I think in order to beat Dallas, they're going to be very aggressive. You got to beat them underneath. Get Shepard going. Get these guys going. I really like Richie James. I don't think this is like some kind of fluke. I think this kid is a good ball player, and I think it's a big reason why we're not seeing Kadarius Toney on the field.
Well, that and the fact that Toney wants to be a rapper instead of a football player.
Truth be told, yeah, I don't really think his heart's all the way in it. Kenny Golladay got the bag. He had no business getting the bag, but you can blame the previous regime on that. I got it 23-20. It's going to be close, but I'm not going to be mind blown if we catch an L. It's the difference between being a playoff team and being a team that is not quite on schedule yet, or I tend to believe they might be slightly ahead of schedule, because I think Brian Dable is really the right man for this job, but it's going to take time. They have to fix some issues that the previous regime left, one mainly being the salary cap. There are, I think Dable has a great eye for talent. And what I do like about him in his initial run here with the Giants is that he is not catering to guys because of what your paycheck says and what pressures, this guy has to be on the field because we gave him the bag. No, he wants to play the guys whose hearts are in it and who gives his team a best chance to win every game. So therefore, he has already my vote of confidence, more than I could say about the previous coach.
True, but just remember, this isn't basketball and this isn't baseball. In football, the money, they don't really care about that.
Well, it's been proven on a lot of levels.
We watch Seattle give a quarterback $50 million and then draft Russell Wilson and play him.
Yeah, football, we did see that. We really did.
Football, they don't care.
We really
basketball,
did. The salary cap keeps raising too, and that's also an influence of that.
In football, those coaches always play the guy who's going to help them save their job. And, so am I going to sit here and tell you that, that Daboll's the guy? No, the guy's never done anything as a coach, as a head coach. So I can't, he's not Bill Parcells. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's early.
And
Yeah, we don't have a crystal ball.
The fact is, they probably could have or should have lost game 1. Okay. They could have or should have lost game 2 at home, a game they should have probably been up about 21-0.
That dropped INT kind of gave me the Asante Samuel vibes from Super Bowl 42.
Okay. So think about how different the narrative is if Tennessee hangs on and wins that game after totally outplaying the Giants in the first half. And if that game last week was basically nip and tuck after the Giants blew an opportunity to really create that separation.
Oh, I was
Giants
frustrated.
a better team.
I was frustrated.
Right? If you were 0-2, are you sitting here telling me Daboll's the guy because he's not playing Galladay? No. So you know what? It don't matter.
Point taken. Daboll's the guy. Well, but time will tell, and you make very logical points. I guess when you're so used to coming out of the gates,
I guarantee you, in 4 years, there's another coach coaching the Giants.
I can't make that yet. That we'll see.
Order. Listen, what has history told you?
History is very cyclical, and history has told me that has been the trend. We unceremoniously dumped
every coach the Giants have had.
We dumped Tom Coughlin, and we haven't been right. Actually, Brian Daboll
looks like a mechanic. What is it with the Giants?
Brian Daboll looks like my best friend in New York. His fantasy name is Daboll is not my dad. I'm gonna show you a pic of my best friend in New York. His name also happens to be Richie. He looks just like Brian Daboll. It's a trip. We're gonna move it over to New England. Mac Jones yesterday getting an injury, which I will admit, when I first saw it, I thought that was going to be the season. Fortunately, it looks like it's only going to be the better part of a month with him.
They're saying high ankle sprain is what they're saying.
Yeah, that could be tricky. But where do they turn now a quarterback? I mean, Brian Hoyer, is this man really going to start a game?
First of all, New England wasn't going anywhere. So
no.
Who the hell what difference does it make who the hell plays? You could go play quarterback.
I don't know, man. Behind that O-line.
Wait a minute, Richie. How many games did you think New England was going to win?
Initially, I said 9-8, and then as the year drew closer, I think I said 8-9.
Okay, they can still win their 7-8 games. I mean, they got the Jets twice, right? I mean, they have the Jets twice.
Sauce Gardner's going to lock down Devontae Parker. My buddy's outside in the back of my house watching the show right now. Brett, if you're listening, I just want to let you know that my man Sauce Gardner is going to lock. It's this big inside joke that we got with Sauce Gardner.
Got it. Look, I think if you look at New England's schedule.
Look at what my man just said. Bro, Cam Newton, get out of here.
I think, please. I think if you look at New England's schedule and you go down, I'm sure you could find, 9 wins for them, or 8 wins, I should say.
I do try to give Belichick the benefit of the doubt, even though I feel that he should have hung up the GM hat a very long time ago.
I mean, they have. I mean, I know just off the top of my head, I know that they have. Because I was talking to someone about that. They have Detroit on the schedule, right? And I think they get them at home, like we said. They have the Giants twice. They get, I think, Arizona too. So, I mean, they have games. The Raiders have proven to be underachieving right now. And not to mention that you could get Buffalo and Miami might be clinched by the time everything happens. So you can get, you can get to 8 wins. Point is, they weren't going to be any good anyway.
And the AFC is so deep.
So who the backup quarterback is, it doesn't really matter.
I guess it's just kind of weird because I started watching football probably in the 90s season, which was a great year for me since I was a Giant fan. And I remember New England not even being a thought within the Boston sports scene. It was all about the Bruins, the Celtics, the Red Sox. They were an afterthought. And anything pre-2000, with maybe the exception of a couple of Drew Bledsoe years, really, they were an afterthought.
But why were they a thought during Drew Bledsoe? Because they had Parcells.
Yes, he brought credibility.
Once Belichick leaves this team, they'll go back to being the 1984 team, 85 team with Steve Grogan. Like, yeah. And I can't wait for that because I know everyone's a Patriots fan because they were winning. Yeah. I want them to have that same energy.
Yeah, because I've been miserable with my Giants for different junctures. I remember the Dave Brown, Kent Graham, Danny Cannell era, and that's part of being a fan, why it's so sweet when things get better. But Dable's the guy. I just want to say that again. Packers outlast the Bucs. Defensive classic yesterday. Kind of what I expected. The Bucs are missing so many guys. I feel that Green Bay could have put them away early prior to that Aaron Jones fumble into the end zone. I think they could have stepped on their necks. Late in the game, I was really concerned for my younger sister because my old man, rest his soul, was a diehard Green Bay Packer fan. My sister inherited that from him. My dad, no matter what attempt, could never veer me away from the Giants. But yeah, she was back and forth with me during the game, and she was like, man, those last 30 seconds were brutal. It's kind of what I expect. You lose a Devontae Adams, you have a very young receiving corps. And it's going to take time for Aaron Rodgers to really get right with these guys. I do think the Green Bay defense is very good.
Very good. And hey, listen, they're 9-1 without Devontae Adams.
Good stat. And that's a fact. Yes, that's a good stat.
They'll be fine. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in football the last 15, 20 years. I don't care what Tom Brady, you could tell me whatever you want. Again, is Tom Brady a winner, game on the line?
Absolutely.
I get all that stuff. But I'm talking about pure quarterbacking skill, ability, the ability to throw on the run, to move and do. To me, I haven't seen anyone better than Rodgers the last 15, 20 years.
I can't argue that. And Rodgers needs a little more hardware to put all the haters to bed with that.
Hey, listen, to me, I don't even worry about that stuff because everybody changes the rules on winning. I got text messages from people telling me Tua is a winner because they're 3-0 and he won at Alabama. But Tony Romo wasn't a winner, even though he won 10, 11 games every year with
you and I, if we hand off the ball, could be winners at Alabama because you're playing with all these five-star athletes.
Come on. I had somebody tell me the other day Justin Fields could throw in college, but he can't throw in the pros. They don't understand it. I said, well, because at Ohio State, they were playing Rutgers.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, like, stop. I mean, look, I think Green Bay right now is the Super Bowl representative for the NFC. They should have been the Super Bowl representative last year when they were the best team in the NFL.
I picked them to win the conference despite some of the growing pains with these kids. In my my very way too early predictions, I got the Bills winning their first Super Bowl against the Green Bay Packers.
That was my prediction when the season started. I'm glad that the defense is proving me right. What you saw yesterday was the Tampa defense is good.
Yeah, they are
good.
They are,
but they're shot offensively.
And I'll be honest, Brady is at an age when he doesn't have all his toys to play with, he looks very pedestrian, similar to how he looked in his final year in New England. And I always tell this to people. I'm not a Brady hater. I have no reason to be. My team took him down twice in the big game, and I do respect him. But I will say this. People always seem to flip a narrative that ignores the fact that this man, in a 22 or so year career, has had a top 10 defense about 16 or 17 times.
100%. It's what I always say about Aaron Rodgers. He's never give me okay. So he had Devontae Adams 5 years. Before that, he was still elite, great with Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb. Stop. Okay.
I got an interesting stat for you that you might have already heard this somewhere else, but
probably not. I probably don't watch as much as you would think.
There's only one first round pick that has ever caught a touchdown pass from Aaron Rodgers. His name is Mercedes Lewis.
I did know.
That's pretty wild when you think about it, though.
That I did know.
Now, this guy's a first-round pick. We got 2 first-round picks here. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert. Herbert showing a lot of moxie, a lot of guts, just getting on the field with that rib cartilage injury. Me personally, if that's my franchise quarterback, I'm not putting him out there.
Not only that, they put him out there and they throw the ball about 100 times.
Yeah. Here, buddy. How's that knife feel in your side? Keep chucking it. I will say this.
First of all, the coaching staff with the Chargers every week amazes me. Every week. In fact, coaches in the NFL amaze me at how bad they are game managing.
Mm-hmm.
And you could even go back. Did you watch that Detroit game?
A little bit, not so much, because my buddy is a diehard Patriot fan, so he was hanging in my back room, and I was watching Buffalo, but I did see a little bit.
Detroit's winning under the 2-minute warning.
That I did notice.
They're at the 35-yard line.
Okay.
And Minnesota's got one timeout left.
Okay.
About a minute 45 or something like that left. They're up 3.
Okay.
They proceed to kick a field goal or try to kick a field goal with a guy who had already missed twice.
I got him in fantasy. That's right. Seibert.
Okay.
Seibert. Okay.
Yeah. And what is that field goal doing for you? It's going to put you up 6. You could still get beat because now you got to kick off. They can get the ball at the 30 anyway.
Show the testicular fortitude and try to put it away if you could.
You're better off either A, going for it on 3rd and 6, or punt the ball, pin them inside the 10, and at least if that happens, you guarantee yourself a tie for overtime. Because now statistically speaking, they're probably going to go the length of the field. One timeout. Can they do it? Yes, but
And the kind of games Cousins was playing, that certainly wasn't in the bag.
Correct. So my point is, you're almost going to play for the tie. The tie can get. But they do the worst thing. They try a field goal. The guy misses. Now they get the ball. 2 passes are in the end. So I'm like, what are you doing?
And then I look dumb because I've been praising Campbell since like last year. Oh, the guys are really playing for him. And, Hard Knocks, my buddy was like, you got to watch it. You got to watch it. So I finally did. And, he's a former Giant, so I kind of got a soft spot for him. But no, it was poorly handled. And, to your point, you do see this a lot with younger coaches. And my good friend Jordan, who I'm going to watch a game with tonight, he's really high on Mike McDaniel in Miami. And while I think the guy is pretty creative,
Mike McDaniel.
It's easy to be creative when you have those guys.
Mike McDaniel. He
looks like an accountant.
He
looks like my financial advisor, like somebody that I want handling my money. I don't know. That's how I feel. I don't think he ever played football before on any level.
Hey, I told you, Dable looks like a mechanic.
But see, I could work with that because we play in Jersey. I could work with that. And he looks like my best friend's dad. If my best friend's dad looked like that. I'm just saying.
He looks like a poor man's Mark Anthony, doesn't he?
Well, when you figure in the offseason, you start getting some color on him. Maybe. But, we had a cook at my place that used to look like Mark Anthony too, but that's another conversation.
But listen, Jacksonville, it looks like they're moving in the right direction, and the Chargers, who I thought would be the second best team in the AFC.
So did I.
Right now are showing a lot of bad coaching.
A lot of warts, man, after they look very sexy on paper.
The scheme, they go for every 4th down. They never kick field goals. Like it's like he coaches like he's playing a game of Madden, and he can always hit the reset button.
But that's a good point, and it almost looks like the old school Chargers, the old Air Coryell and all that. They're not doing Herbert any favors. And maybe I'm out of pocket saying this, but I feel that if they would have benched Herbert yesterday, let that kid heal up another week, they would have had a better chance to win the game with Chase Daniel. He's actually a pretty good backup. But more importantly, he was healthy.
But Richie, here's the thing. Even if you don't win the game, you lost anyway. You lost anyway. So what the hell's the difference?
Yo. Mike McCarthy looks like Mussolini.
He probably does, but you know what? The one thing McCarthy can say that none of those other guys can say is that
he got a ring.
He's got it.
He does have a ring.
And
tonight he's going to catch an L because Dable is the guy.
Hey, well, I'm sure it won't be because of coaching, but
might be because of our Scottish kicker, God willing. Mahomes and Eric Bieniemy, not Eric B of previous
Eric B.
Rakim.
I thought I was just saying Rakim. Okay.
No. Yeah, Eric B's a peaceful dude. He tried to squash that East Coast, West Coast stuff before it all got out of control.
You're right. Nothing happened.
No, nothing at all. Patrick Mahomes and him visibly getting into it. A good friend of mine, Quentin Moore, has said time and time again that he thinks Eric Bieniemy is overrated because he's part of the reason he hasn't got a coaching gig is because they're always in the playoffs, so he has less opportunities when they all dry up with all the interview process, the hiring process. Bigger than that, I still feel that that's Andy Reid as the head there. I think Eric Bieniemy does get a little too much credit sometimes. Not quite sure what these two were jawing about because, watching the Colts play the Chiefs didn't exactly excite me yesterday, so my attention was elsewhere.
I'm not going to tell you that Eric Bieniemy is not a good coach. When he was at Colorado in college, he was one of my favorite college players. Do I think that he does an incredible job? No, I believe that when you have that quarterback, you can make a lot of mistakes and make calls, and he's going to sell you. But I'm not going to cut him short. The guy's he's doing his thing.
More importantly, I think. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just think Mahomes is like balling out of control with all these new guys, and it shows his greatness, similar to Rodgers.
Eric Bieniemy doesn't have a job in the NFL because he's not the guy that most of these people, from a verbiage standpoint, want representing the CEO of a company. I mean, it's just what it is.
I never looked at it like that.
And I'm going to tell you, from two people within the NFL have told me he's got a couple of skeletons in the closet. So, again, people could say it's racism, could say this. If he was as clean cut off the field and could speak like Mike Tomlin, he'd have a job.
And Mike Tomlin, in general, is like the standard for what you want a head coach and a leader. And
I'll be honest with you.
To Mike be Tomlin, like, look like, and act like.
And I'm going to tell you something. For those that say that Aaron Rodgers has underachieved or whatever, Mike Tomlin's probably the poster boy of that. He won the Super Bowl with the team he took over, and he had 3 probably Hall of Famers at quarterback, running back, and receiver, and he didn't win.
Yeah, I always point that out to Pittsburgh fans when we get into it because, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown.
He left a lot of stuff on the table, too.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag with him because, never missing the playoffs, obviously, that is impressive. Can't say that it isn't. Last year, it took a minor miracle. Oh, Idris agrees with that comment. Yeah, okay. But it took a minor miracle for them to kind of back into last year's playoffs. As far as this goes, there's any cause for concern? Not necessarily in my eyes. I just feel that things get heated on the football field, and I'm sure Kansas City's a little frustrated because Indy is not a good team, and Indy, I'll admit, was a team that I overestimated coming into the season.
Matt Ryan's just as done as Russell Wilson.
Yeah, Russell Wilson. I must say, I just thought because of the overwhelming talent in that division, the Broncos were going to be screwed. I do tend to like their defense, but to your point,
their schedule's easy also. But Russell Wilson, I said this 2 years ago. I thought after that, 2 years ago, those first 6 or 7 games, the guy was the MVP of the league.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From that point on, he was terrible. Came back, got hurt, missed the game. It's a wrap. It's a wrap.
Yeah, I was a little taken back when I saw how thirsty they were to bring him in because this is an organization that was definitely high on Aaron Rodgers. That did surprise me. And I'm going to piggyback off of what you said, and maybe I'm overreacting here, but I also think Carr is just as done as Russell Wilson. Maybe I'm a little wrong for saying that because there's other variables.
I don't know about all that. I just think that the issue with the Raiders is they can't run the ball consistently. So because they can't run the ball consistently, they put a lot of pressure on the passing game.
And you feel maybe it's just become a little too predictable?
Well, I mean, hell, they have one of the best route runners in the game.
No doubt.
They have Devontae Adams, who's always open.
Mm-hmm.
They have a top 3 tight end in the game.
Yeah, Waller's good.
So, Renfro like I said, is one of the best route runners. He can get open anytime.
I call him like the poor man's Julian Edelman. I mean, that dude is good.
They should get anything they want on offense, except the fact that you have to run the ball at times. And for whatever reason, Jacobs peaks and valleys every week. That run game, you never know if you're going to get. Jacobs is one of those terrible running backs that you could have in fantasy, because at the end of the year, his numbers might look okay, but he gives you too many 9-carry, 24-yard games. So I don't think they can run the ball. They're just not good up front both ways.
My buddy Brett is trolling on those Raiders. Just win, baby. Oh, boy. My Uncle Randy out in Long Island, he's licking his wounds. That man loves his Raiders. That man is crazy about his Raiders, but I know that he's hurting over them. Before we get out of here, quick question for you, Sergio. First of all, thank you for being a part of my show. This was a really good time, and I enjoyed having you here.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt.
Thank you very much. Random. Your best sports story being involved on your level. Like, what is this a cool story of yours?
Coaching?
Anything you want to share?
Wow.
Kind of broad.
I would tell you that it's funny. I've coached softball in New Jersey 27 years.
That's awesome.
Played in high school, very successful, played in college. I've done a lot in the sport. Winning the state title this year and watching the joy in those kids' faces when the game ended, I took about 30 seconds to myself to stand back to watch them celebrate.
That's awesome.
Probably a moment that is embedded with me right now that'll probably stay with me the rest of my life.
That's awesome, Sergio. And congratulations on that victory.
Thank you. Thank you.
You are always welcome to join us. I greatly appreciate you hanging. And I wanted to ask you before we get out of here, where can my audience check on what you've been up to with your podcast?
Yeah, so they can go on Apple Pod or Spotify, The Sergio Rodriguez Show, a show unlike any other. You could find us there on Instagram. It's the same thing, The Sergio Rodriguez Show on Twitter also. If you go on the Sports Journey Network through their website, you can find us. So we're all over the place.
Awesome. And moving forward, we could also converse on our socials when a lot of hot topics are coming about in the sports world. Going to keep our eyes on this Aaron Judge thing. And I think that's everything. But before I get out of here, I just wanted to tell you one more time, in case I didn't mention it, Dable is the guy. And I don't care I don't know, man. He could probably fix my catalytic converter too, but I am stoked about tonight, man. And forgive me for maybe having the Homer hat on too much, man. It's been a long time since I've been this stoked about week 3.
Hey, listen, you guys are going to have a season that will keep you engaged till December.
I hope so.
No, you will. The schedule dictates it. All you have to do is pray that the quarterback does not continue to turn the ball over at that volume.
Or put himself in positions where he's been lucky in the early going where it wasn't turned over. Because I wanted to punch my television week 1 with that back shoulder throw there where he totally – Saquon didn't do him a favor, but he compounded the problem by throwing it anyway.
Oh, and here's the other thing. Here's the other thing with the Giants that you have to worry about. The running back or the all-purpose guy, because I don't think he's a running back, the all-purpose guy.
Yeah, that's better stated. I agree.
Right? He doesn't play. You can't count on him to play 17 games. So the chances are that he's only going to play about 5 or 6 more games this year.
Well, I'm on the optimistic side.
The guy's missed more games in his career than he's played. Well, what?
I'm on the optimistic side that with the lower extremities.
But that's being optimistic. But my point, I'm speaking in facts. I don't know. So like I said, You're right. Optimistically speaking, if he stays healthy, I think the Giants, because of their schedule, can get to 8 wins.
Right? Sergio, thank you so much. We got a dip.
Take care.
Thank you.